Everybody ready in the back? All right.
Thumbs up.
Jeff Cassar.
All right, well, thanks for coming, obviously. This is a little bit too frequent for me to be in this room in front of a mic, but obviously we're happy today to be able to kind of open it up for questions. And off the announcement yesterday, obviously we're in a good spot moving forward. We have a good plan in place, and feel very comfortable with Jeff, and feel comfortable with some of the other dynamics and shifts that we have planned for this offseason. So I think the easiest thing for us is to let you guys do your job and start asking questions, because we can make up as many answers as we want, but until we know the questions, we know they'll just keep coming. So you guys have at us.
Why did you go all the way to the end of the contract? How come you didn't do this maybe mid-season?
Well, I think the discussion started mid-season. In July we sat quite high in the standings, not only in the league, and the accomplishments in the first half of the year warranted those discussions to start. We talked about it briefly. I don't know how many of us, but I mentioned it a couple times throughout the middle of the year that those discussions would start kind of late July, and they did. In terms of announcing it, I mean, it's always paint on the wall. You can choose when you announce it, but the discussion started quite a while ago, and they were pretty healthy the whole way. So while it wasn't an overnight thing, I think the where it culminates is today, and the announcement yesterday just kind of made it public.
Probably would have been better if they were done earlier when we were in second place in the West.
The paint would have been brighter.
Jeff, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Next year. Second time you make the playoffs in your 3 years with Real Salt Lake. Tell us a little bit. It was a great season until you win the Colorado win here at home when you beat Colorado, the Rocky Mountain Cup.
Yeah.
What happened after that? It seemed that Real Salt Lake went all the way down after being all the way up. What happened?
It's. I say this a lot of times. I don't think it's ever one thing, one reason. When the goals started to dry up a little bit, I believe that our group started to lose a little bit of faith, and with that, lost a little bit of confidence. And it's always a tricky thing, because I think during many of those games, not all of them, of course, we had the performances that warranted points. And when we didn't achieve those, I think the group got frustrated, lost a little bit of confidence, and then we started to try to figure out separately how to solve it. As the leader of the team, this is only my third year being a head coach, and this is part of the process and things I need to improve on. But really, it was probably at the end of the day bringing the group back together to the basics of why we were successful earlier on to be successful at the end of the year. So I think we started to kind of move in a couple different ways, and at the end of the day, that's my fault.
This is for both of you. Have you guys figured out what you're going to do with the staff moving forward, or is that still in a fluid situation?
Well, we've been in the communication between Craig and myself has been great. Obviously, we all need to look to improve, starting with us two, how we can improve, and we've really been bouncing a lot of things off each other on how we can improve together, the team and the staff. We've been having meetings with the staff over the last couple weeks, and we still have some to do, but we are looking to maybe restructure It might not always have to be a coaching change, but maybe a little bit of restructuring, responsibilities, things like that. So it's clear. It's clear for myself. It's clear for Craig. It's clear for the players. And at the end of the day, it's clear for the coaches. Again, that's part of the evolution of becoming a manager, a leader, and you're constantly looking for ways to play to each coach's strengths and try to, which entails making the team better, right? So we're working on that.
Good answer.
Jeff again here.
Yeah, sorry.
Francisco, do you ever feel that you lost your locker room at the end of the season? It gave us the impression to all the journalists, the fans, that there were some conflicts within the team that didn't let the team continue the good pace that you
Sure.
were having. Did that ever happen, Jeff?
Francisco, it's a fair question. Absolutely. I would say I never lost a locker room. I think we have a lot of great leaders, great experienced players, and fantastic young men in our young players. So I never lost the locker room. What happened was, I believe, again, we just became unconfident, and when that happens, instead of solving it together as a group, sometimes we start to solve it and try to figure it out separately. But I don't believe I ever lost a locker room. The trust of the players. I do believe that some part of this had to do with everyone not being able to play to 100% physically. And when that happens, and then the results don't come, then the mental part now drops into it. We just lost our way a little bit. And it was a massive learning experience for myself, for the staff. And these are the things that are only going to make us stronger, make us better, make us more experienced, make us weathered, that if this happens, because it's going to happen without a doubt. Sometimes it happens at the beginning of the year, sometimes it happens in the middle. Ours happened right at the end, which is about the worst possible time because there's no time to correct it. But I think we're all going to be better for going through it. And I'm really excited about this opportunity to lead this group again, but I'm also really excited to lead the guys that are in the locker room because I know they're hungry, they're together. Craig and I had wonderful meetings with them where they expressed their needs and desires, and everyone was very united that they're excited about what can happen next year.
In what areas does the team need to improve, and how are you guys going to address it?
Yeah,
Well, I
did
mean,
that one last
listen, I think we need to, you look to improve everywhere. You look to improve, can we improve with our starting group? Can we improve with our depth? Can we improve with our youth? So you look to improve everything. But it's a long, long season in the MLS. It's 10 months of playing. These players at the end of the day really get about 6 weeks off from soccer, and they're still training even when they're doing that. So it's a long year, and we need to make sure that we have the right stamina, the right energy, the right commitment at the end of years. Is that what we're doing leading up to that time? Is that we have to make sure that we're monitoring minutes of older players to where they're fresher at the end of the year? Or is it just getting a little bit younger, a little bit fresher, and things like that? So it's not one thing, but we need to get a little bit more athletic. You could see that last game we just didn't have it, and again, it's not one thing, that's for sure. But we need to make sure that we can keep up the speed that we want to play, the intensity that we want to play in every single match of the entire year.
We need to continue to build the roster that can accommodate the change in the formation. We're 24 months into a process that takes quite a while in MLS. We've addressed it before, just the process of how you manipulate a roster and work within the salary cap to kind of get to where you want to go. It's not preaching patience. It's a plan. It's where we're going. We need to continue to build the roster accordingly. I think we took some great steps this year. I think what happened was along the way, fatigue is a big piece of our season. There's a team playing in the Eastern Conference Final that in the middle of summer everyone kind of wrote off. They couldn't find their way. They were able to solve the riddle before the end of the year or right at the end of the year, and much like Portland last year did, and put together everything at the right time. But as we form the roster and continue to build the roster to accommodate the switch into formation, it will become more dynamic, more sustainable. And I think in terms of game management, tactically, we'll be able to make more changes. We'll be able to make more confident changes rather than possibly some substitutions that we hope can assert themselves within the system. I think we're getting very close to having a roster that represents this system and the style of play. And I think that's the other piece of the puzzle is, you know, he's managing the game day and the day-to-day training, and my job's to kind of continue the growth of the roster to strengthen this formation that we're going into. It's semantics, so I like to leave it up to you guys to call it what you want, but 4 defenders, 1 forward, you guys decide what the midfield is. That's fine with me.
Craig, the Western Conference is tough, and it was
Yeah.
difficult just to get the 6th seed
Yeah.
this year. Are the standards even higher next year as you judge your coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the standards increase. You know, I think statistically speaking, the body of work over the last 3 years, and I was a part of that on Jeff's staff 3 years ago, and you look at 14, 15, 16, I think we don't rank higher than 8th in any major category, but we don't rank lower than, I believe, 12th in any category. So we're right in the middle over the course of 3 years, and that's with formation change, with roster turnover, with coaching change, multiple coaching change, with GM change, with a lot of things. There are some really positive accomplishments that we've been able to kind of walk out of the mire with, you know. But in terms of sports, this is judged on wins. You know, we didn't like the end of the season because we didn't win, and unfortunately, there will be 19 teams that share this same feeling. I said it last week. We have to lament a little bit earlier than 16 or so other people, and but every year I think the expectations should go up, and every year I believe the expectations deserve to go up. I don't think this is a job that either one of us expects people to treat us with kid gloves. You know, we make tough decisions. We take steps forward. When we take steps back, we hear about every single one of those. We don't always necessarily read about the good ones, but it's part of the gig. So the accomplishments need to get greater. 8th to 12th is great in the first 3 years of a coach's career. My first full year as a general manager, proud of what we accomplished, making the playoffs. Won't lie to you, not proud of the last 8 games, not at all. That's neither one of us is, and neither one of us would sit here and tell you that and lie to you and try to make us feel better. So, not happy with how we finished, and going into next season, I think the representation and all of the conversations Jeff and I have are pretty candid. Me coming from his assistant to GM kind of creates a pretty open dialogue between us, and we both understand what the expectations are of each other. Have a good day. Oh boy, this could go on for a while. You want to go grab Carlos? Sorry. Yeah, I mean, candidly, 8th to 12th is if you look statistically, and I'm not just a stats guy because there's human beings involved. I'm No, I gotta say this while this is on. No, I'm teasing. I'll wait. I'm not a stat hound, and I don't make all my decisions based strictly off stats. I mean, obviously, there's what the numbers tell you, and then there's what we see. And one thing that we always say is trust your eyes. Stats can guide you, but your eyes are going to probably tell you the truth 10 times out of 10. And the stats suggest, like I said, anywhere from 8th to 12. That's very respectable. I think if you really study what I would call the meaningful stats, we've accomplished quite a bit in the transition. But that's where we can't rely on those stats to be our backbone either. We have to consistently improve, and we have to demand improvement. And so, next year we need to see some categories that increase. And as we transition comfortably into this formation and our roster starts to take even more shape and personality in this, we'd like to see our goal production go up, which, I mean, who wouldn't? But at the same time, the last 8 games statistically show you that we could have been much, much better had we been able to maintain that performance. Every team goes through downs. Every team goes through scoring droughts. That's soccer. Over the course of the season, quite frankly, we need to keep it simple. We need to give up less, and we need to get more.
Jeff, getting younger or getting athletic and quicker usually means getting younger. What's your role in kind of bringing along the next generation, the younger guys who are already on the roster?
That's a good question. It can also be getting younger, but it also can be, it's something that Craig and I and the staff are going to be working extremely hard in the off-season over the next probably 3 weeks, is coming up with a specific type of player that we want for every position and sticking to it. And if they don't have the attributes that we want, they won't be on our team. So that doesn't necessarily have to be younger. It can be any age, but they just have to be to the standards that we're going to be setting. But it is exciting. I know this is a time, well, we're talking about my extension, but the future next year is really exciting. Trey and Matt gave me a great stat. This was a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that we had the 3rd most minutes of players under 22 that have played in the league. We don't. It's not talked about very much, is it? But that's really promising. And there's a few guys that didn't play that are going to be knocking on the door next year to play. They can move into the roles that Justin Glad and Jordan Allen have stepped into. We can't forget that Plata's still young. Omes is still young. We're a pretty young team once we get past the core players that have been here, and they're taking care of their bodies extremely well. So I think we're going to have a little bit younger team, but it's also going to be a younger team that's more experienced for the things that they've went through this year and the experiences that they've got this year, which is going to make them stronger and more consistent players. Because at the end of the day, that's what you look for from a young player is consistency. Justin Glad has been one that's really stepped up, not just with his play, but with his consistent play. And that is a great model of what we want to do for our players. Obviously, the Monarchs, our relationship with them just took massive strides this year, massive strides. And that's going to be even better when we have the Academy, Monarchs, and RSL under one building in our new facility out in Harriman. This is a very exciting time, we are going to be faster. We're going to be more explosive next year, and we're going to play at a speed that people can't handle with, and they can't handle it for an entire game, and that's really exciting.
What positions are you guys looking to recruit in the off season?
Go ahead, man. If you want to touch that one, you go for it.
Well, you were the roster guy.
I know. I don't touch things like that. No, we have our targeted positions, but I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of tipping our cap right now. If we're in an expansion year, so there's a lot of different deadlines, different trade talks, a lot of phone calls right now. Thankfully, this got me away from my phone for a bit, but There's a lot of talks right now because of expansion. There's a lot of different dynamics that go into this year. I talked a lot last year specific to the center back position. I think our targets are a little bit different. It doesn't mean we are not looking to get better, and I'm not writing off signing another center back. But in terms of our targeted positions, I'm far more comfortable sharing that with you probably in December after the expansion draft, just so we don't tip our cap on anything that may end up costing us more or devaluing a player that we have.
Jeff, back to your relationship with the locker room. For everyone in the stadium, it was clearly tense as Burrito came off the field.
Yeah.
You step away from it now. What's the relationship like?
It's fantastic, you know. I mean, listen, I'm never. No one wants to come off the field. I get that. I was a player, and I never wanted to be taken off. I didn't want to be taken out of the lineup. He is a passionate person, and I get that. There's no problem whatsoever between us. What you have to do is you have to make sure that you're respecting the player that's coming on for you. You know, I can deal with them disagreeing with me, yelling at me, or anything, but really, at the end of the day, it's the respect for the player that's coming on. And I know our locker room respects each other, but that's really what disagreement is about. It's not the disagreement with me. That's no problem. The disagreement, what the respect level is, okay, this player's coming on for me. I need to congratulate him because he's coming on either to help us keep the win, get the win, whatever it is. And that's really where it comes down for me. It's not that they have to love every decision I make or be happy about it or anything. It's that they need to show respect to the other player coming on.
Great. Does the fact that Javi Morales is having a press meeting in a few hours made you rush the announcement of the renewal of Jeff Cassar at all?
No, not at all. I didn't even know Javi was having one until yesterday. His press conference has very little to do with the steps we're taking. I fully support his press conference. You will never hear me say a bad word about Javi. I have an amazing amount of respect for him, everything he's done for the organization. I think there's still some conversations that could be had, and I'm as interested as you guys to see what he says today. But from an organizational standpoint, I mean, this is a legend of our club and someone that should be honored, and we will do everything in our power to honor him the right way according to what his wishes are and the next steps for him. But no, we're not as dynamic as you give us credit for. We don't really time announcements to try and jump on another one or sidestep anything. We time them according to when we make the decisions.
But the question is, he go out or you go out?
I'm sorry?
The question is, the decision for out of the club for Javi is for him or is for you?
I don't think that decision's been made final yet. I read what, we had a meeting last week, and it unfortunately didn't go exactly as scripted. Every meeting ends with handshakes and hugs, but there's some very difficult conversations that are had, and I think Javi's a class act. I think Javi will let us know today what his intentions are, and we will fully support whatever they are. And until we know, we don't know.
Craig, how does Javi's possible departure change the landscape of this club's offseason?
Well, you have to replace him. I mean, there's the obvious. If Javi's on his way out, then we need to replace him. But sports are an interesting dynamic. There's everyone, fans, players, myself included. When I played, everyone kind of wants the same fairy tale ending, and it doesn't always work out that way for players or club. And I'm not speculating on anything, but if the decision is best for both parties to move on, then we evolve as a club. We look for the next player. I mean, this is not abnormal to any sports team, any sports franchise in the world. There There are players that retire and stay a part of each organization. There are players that move on and play elsewhere. There are players that retire and don't choose to stay on with organizations. I think the conversations last week were, as you'd expect, they were pretty emotional. They were very difficult conversations in terms of potential role, and for that we kind of wait with the respect and obviously the admiration that we have for Javi for his decision, and then we go from there. But I mean, the players graduate, players move on, players retire, players get released, they get injured. This happens in sports, and as an organization, you honor players as best you can if they are indeed on their way out, and then you go find the next one for your fans to fall in love with, and the challenge is simply that, redefining, if we need to, redefining who we are and our identity. And I think we have a great core of really promising and talented young guys that our fans deserve the opportunity to fall in love with as well.
What kind of contract was Javi offered?
What kind of contract was Javi offered? The discussions didn't get there. We never got into specific contract discussion. Simply put, there's many conversations that happen before you ever get to contract discussions in terms of expectations, both from club and player, and before. Maybe I don't know if this makes me different. I hope it doesn't, but. I think before you even get to a contract discussion, there's many discussions in terms of role and expectations that a player has for the club as well as the club has for the player. And so there were no specifics ever discussed in terms of numbers. Those conversations could be upcoming. We'll find out kind of where we sit today. And again, it's full support. This is a guy who deserves every bit of support that we have to offer him, and every ounce of enjoyment that he's given us needs to be reciprocated in respect.
What exactly happened with Javi Morales? Because it seems that it got out of control with you guys.
I'm not sure what you're asking. Can you be a little more specific?
Yeah, like Javi Morales is no longer with the team. Is there any chance you can still fix the situation? It is not fixable. What exactly happened?
Oh no, you're trying to make a story out of something that doesn't exist. You're trying to create a story. I'm not going there. I mean, you're talking about fixing something that we're not going there.
We don't have more details. That's why we would like to know what really happened with Javi Morales. That's what I'm asking.
Well, there's conversations. We meet with every player at the end of the season, 28 player meetings. I'm not going to share any of the notes from any of those with you. Those are conversations between the club and the player. We will continue to support him as best we can in his decisions and his desire.
Well, I had another question, but since we're on this topic, does it come down to his role in the club as far as minutes, starting, coming off the bench? Is that more where the discussion and maybe difference of opinion lies?
I think the role is probably, however you interpret that when I say it. I think roles are what define every conversation between not only coaches and players, myself and coaches, myself and ownership. It's all about our roles and responsibilities and whether or not we feel they fit exactly what we believe we're capable of. We never got in depth into that piece of the conversation, so I think it's pure speculation to kind of mislead you guys, and I just won't do it.
In the press release, you referenced the 2017 season with Jeff and his contract. And Jeff, I didn't hear it, but I heard in an interview that you referenced a 3-year deal. Can you clear that up for us?
It's a 3-year deal, but at the end of the day, there's one guaranteed, and there's triggers for the rest. And obviously, as a coach, you want security, right? You want to be able to have time to have your plan come to fruition. But I completely understand that, as Craig said earlier, this is a results business. And if I don't do well, why should I have a job? And maybe at the end of the day, why should I get paid if I'm not doing well? Me as a person and the way I was brought up is that's how it kind of works. I mean, I would love a 3-year guaranteed, and if I got fired, I'm getting paid for 2 years. We'd all love that. But at the end of the day, if we do well, we'll have a job. And I can wrap my head around that. I really can. Would I want it some other way? Absolutely. I mean, I think we all would. But I'm a hungry coach. I'm a young, hungry coach. My staff is young and hungry. And usually when you have people that are hungry and are fighting, not just for their own personal success, but for what's the most important is the team's success. Usually you always get taken care of when the team is doing well, when the organization's doing well, and everyone has the same goal, which is results.
What's your process and timeline for the expansion draft?
Oh, wow. It's to survive all of the phone calls and posturing going on right now for the next 10 to 14 days from all the other general managers and technical directors. We're kind of constantly on the phone talking about, I like this guy on your roster. Who do you like on my roster? Blah, 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 blah. I find that very rarely do any of them gain traction. So essentially, we have a plan as of today with the roster we have. We'll see if anything happens prior to that. It'll actually dictate change within our plan. But we do have a plan as of today, and as we come up into the option deadline and the expansion draft, I mean, we'll kind of, unfortunately, the way the game is played is, you don't want to release that information until you have to. I say unfortunate because there's advantages to the club. There might be disadvantages to the club if we do. And so it puts us in a weird situation. Everyone in my position across the league is going to get asked this question many, many times in the next couple weeks. And I think we're all probably going to not flinch every time, but just be like, we can't talk about it yet, There's just decisions with players and with men and with human beings and with families that you don't want to get ahead of yourself and put them in an awkward situation. But I think we have a very succinct plan. If you look at our roster, the rules of the expansion draft are really interesting. And one of the rules within the expansion draft is that Generation Adidas, as well as this overused term in our league, homegrown players, are protected outside the 11. So, you can kind of let our fans have a lot of fun with taking those names off the list and then kind of looking at the rest of them. But it's a pretty straightforward process. It happens every time there's expansion. I don't think the rules have changed for 8 or 10 years. You still protect 11. The only change this year is you can lose 1 instead of 2. So that got us in the last one.
Jeff, as currently constituted, do you feel like there's a player on this roster that can replace Javi's position full-time next season?
Listen, I think we've had, it's a great question, Chris. We've had some successful games with Javi out of the lineup, and then we've also not. I think if you look back at the players that have played in there, it's been Luke Mulholland, Jordan Allen has played in there as well. Omar Holness has played in there as well. It's a difficult position. It's especially a difficult position for a younger man. Usually that's a field general. It's somebody that dictates the game, whether it needs to be sped up or slowed down, final passes, the list goes on. But what we have seen is we can be successful with a different look in there. But that's exactly what it is. It's a different look. I think right now, we don't have anybody on our roster that can play that position like Javi did. He's a special player, and he played the game and sees the game like not a lot of people in our league have. So to go out and find that takes work. It takes a lot of scouting. But that type of player isn't on our roster. But that doesn't mean we don't have a player that can play that position, be successful, do it well, and at the end of the day, have the team be successful.
I have a lot of long answers, but this one I can answer short as well. We have players capable of being in there, but we don't have the answer on our roster as of today.
In this resigning decision, what is the target for the next season? Is rebuilding the team, or this is the championship? The target for the next season?
The goal?
Yes, the goal.
Well, I think, that the goal is to get to the MLS Cup. Obviously, it's to get into the playoffs first. As you've seen, there's several teams that in the playoffs now that didn't qualify first or second. So we got to get to the playoffs. That's a difficult task already. But the ultimate goal is to win a championship. Do we have the players in that locker room to do it? Absolutely. Are we still looking to add players to make it even have more depth, more competition? Absolutely. But I have firm belief that we have the players capable of winning a championship.
How is the academy construction coming along?
The facility? The facility's actually, it's on target, oddly. Big construction projects you don't often get to say that, but I do think we're on pace to have the academy, the residence hall, as well as the high school finished next summer, in order to move them. Hopefully we don't have any setbacks in the winter months. But in terms of the construction, it looks gorgeous out there. It's coming along very quickly, and I believe we are on pace as of right now in terms of getting the academy up here sooner than later. In terms of first team, second team movement out to that facility with the seeding of the fields and everything else that needs to take place with natural grass, that's kind of a TBD. But the facility, it's on target to be finished appropriately. It's a matter of will the fields be ready to be beat up, end of next season. But certainly by beginning of 2018, that'll be the home of every one of our teams. And I think by the summer next year, it'll be the home of our academy for sure.
Thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it.